So welcome to our today's lecture of the EAA series in the ARVA Connected. Together with Elke Kaiser, who is sitting next to me, we would like to welcome especially also our today's speaker, Dmytro Kiosak, who is professor at the Department of Archaeology and Ethnology at the Odesa National University since 2021, and is connected to this online lecture now from the University of Bordeaux. Dmytro started his early career in Odesa with a bachelor in history in 2003, and only 1 year later, in 2004, he obtained his first master degree there as well, because a second master degree he received in 2008 after finishing his studies in Ferrara and Paris universities, Italy and France respectively, with a thesis dedicated to the early Mesolithic lithic technology in southwestern Ukraine. Subsequently, he devoted his studies to the technology of late Paleolithic and Mesolithic chipped stone tools, delivering his doctoral thesis at the Odesa National University in 2009 on social and economic organization of flint work in societies of early farmers of the Carpathian-Danubian region during the 6th to 4th millennia BCE. Afterwards, he has been working mainly on the Neolithic and in Neolithic periods. He not only discovered, but also excavated the easternmost settlement of the LBK. And he also excavated the stratified site of Melnichna Krucha, which contained middle and late Mesolithic and also ceramic hunter-gatherers and tripilia layers. Additionally, he worked together with an international team at Kamiana Mogila 1, a site with a similar sequence of layers. From 2021 to 2023, he held the prestigious Marie Curie Fellowship at the Ca' Foscari University in Venice, where he worked on the agent-based modeling of neolithization processes. Accordingly, his list of publications is long, something like 9 pages, and includes many studies devoted to the whole duration of prehistory from Paleolithic to the Neolithic. And in the last 20 years, he published not only 2 books, but also 72 articles, mainly peer-reviewed, in peer-reviewed journals, and I would like to stress here only 3 of them. One article published in 2022 together with Simon Radchenko in Quaternary International on the Upper Paleolithic rock art of Ukraine. Another published in 2021 in Radiocarbon on the last hunter-gatherers and early farmers of the Middle Southern Buh River Valley in central Ukraine, and the third published together with Richard Evershed and many other co-authors in 2022 in Nature on dairying, diseases, and the evolution of lactase persistence in Europe. Most recently, he submitted a monograph for publication entitled Modeling the Rhythm of Neolithization Between the Carpathians and the Dnieper River. His interests are thus very broad, and it comes as no surprise that he's currently working on the Human Past project at the University of Bordeaux, which aims to study turning points in human evolution. But today he will speak about why is the Buh-Dniester culture a poor heuristic. Please, Dmytro, the screen and the microphone are now yours.
Yep. Many thanks for introduction. Many thanks for inviting me, first of all, and in general, it's a pleasure to participate in such a serious event and in such a pleasant company. Basically, I'm taking up the torch lighted by Professor Pietzonka, because she discussed the problem of ceramic hunter-gatherers of Eurasia in general. And I'm going to speak about particular aspect. Here is the map produced by Professor Pietzonka, and here in the southwest of the map, you can see Buh-Dniester aspect. By the way, can you see when I point with a mouse, or is it invisible?
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you. We can see.
Okay. Yes, much better. So I can show with the mouse what I'm meaning. Okay, Buh-Dniester is a concept cultural groupings, so classificatory unit, created by Valentin Danilenko and Vsevolod Markevich in 60s, 70s of the last century. And it caught up and was used by many other authors, famously introduced into Anglo-American archaeology by Ruth Trinham in 1973 in her book. Also, Sulimirsky can be mentioned about not Soviet or post-Soviet authors who worked on this aspect. Some authors underlined a peculiar role of Buh-Dniester in Neolithization of southeastern Europe. Janusz Kozlowski believed that they interacted with linear band ceramic groups as far as southeastern Poland. Evgen Komsha has written a lot about their contacts with Krish culture. And many others contributed to this high estimate of the role of Buh-Dniester people in the Neolithization, so in establishing agriculture and herding and sedentary way of life, Neolithic way of life, in this part of Europe. So we are working more or less in this region. Two major rivers, Dniester and Southern Bug, flowing more or less from northwest to southeast and flowing into the Black Sea. Their valleys are the main location for most of Buh-Dniester sites. And in this talk, I'm going to discuss why the concept of Buh-Dniester culture as a classificatory unit is misleading at the moment and probably should be replaced by a set of more refined, narrower, and better defined in time and space classificatory units. Okay, so that's the plan of the lecture. I'm going to discuss two cultural worlds in the south of Eastern Europe, that of early farmers and that of ceramic hunter-gatherers. Place the question, where was the frontier between these two worlds? Then I am going to criticize the concept of Buh-Dniester by several lines of argument and suggest a positive program of what we might know from the available archaeological record of the region, and discuss very, very briefly the eternal question of Neolithic studies, the question of interaction between hunter-gatherers and early farmers. So two cultural worlds in south of Eastern Europe. The concept, according to my knowledge, introduced by Dmytro Kiosak somewhere in 80s in a series of publications. On the one side, there are incoming early farmers with flat-bottomed pottery, more or pottery assemblages which contain discernible kitchen and fineware, crouched on the side position in burials, permanent houses, and settlements. On the other side, the world of Paraneolithic hunter-gatherers with pointed or rounded bottoms of vessels, often without difference between kitchen and fineware, supine position of buried, temporary huts, and scatters as main type of habitational units. This archaeological observation finds a close correspondence in the paleogenetics. For example, in the recent paper of Morten Allentoft and his 157 co-authors, there are two clusters of paleogenetic complexes, one related to early farmers and Western hunter-gatherers, mostly in Europe, and other related to Eastern hunter-gatherers, mostly in Eastern Europe and also Siberia and Central Asia. Our region of study stays somewhere here in the no man's land, in the neutral zone, according to genetics, but that's all. Genetics always gives us a bit generalized picture, yeah, and we need to zoom in to fine tune it. So where was the actual frontier between early farmers and ceramic hunter-gatherers? Here are LBK area of distribution. Compare it with areas of distribution of several ceramic hunter-gatherers cultural aspects. Buh-Dniester are green. You can see that their areas of distribution overlap quite a lot. And actual frontier of Neolithization surpassed the territory of Buh-Dniester people, Buh-Dniester groups, quite a lot and for quite a prolonged period of time. So to elaborate this, let's take a look at the distribution of Buh-Dniester sites and Buh-Dniester sites which are red diamonds, and Krish culture sites which are in Moldova in this case, because the territory of Romania should be full of these blue circles, yeah. So I mapped only sites of Moldova and Ukraine for this map. They seem quite close. In fact, it's with this scale, it's some maybe 40 kilometers between them. But in fact, they are even closer because there was a network suggested by Professor Ryan Gruber in 2016 of exchanges between Krish and Buh-Dniester on the basis of numerous ceramic imports, especially in Buh-Dniester sites here around Soroka. Also, there is another aspect of this picture. There are numerous sites which are indicated by this gray squares in this map, which are mostly gathered on surface. They are lithic scatters, and they look like late Mesolithic sites. But the typology is somewhat different. Some types of implements make us think that these sites are in fact contemporaneous with actual Neolithic sites. Quite a few of them were defined by Sergei Kovalenko in Moldova, Tsarigrad 2, Belichanivek 12, and some of them were found also in Ukrainian side of Dniester by me and Igor Pistruil, like Katerzhino or Karpove. When these sites are excavated, we often found some small weathered potsheds inside of them. And in rare cases, when these potsheds are diagnostic, they appear to be those of Krish culture, like in Sarateni 1 site in Moldova here. So what were these sites? Were they specific task sites of early farmers or those hunter-gatherers which interacted with early farmers in some way? Obviously, we don't know, but it's an interesting phenomenon to be studied. It adds up to this network concept between Buh-Dniester and Krish. That's the distribution of Buh-Dniester and LBK. LBK penetrated quite deep into valleys of Dniester and southern Bug. Here is situated the site of Kamenez Zavalla. which is the easternmost excavated linear band ceramic site. And it yielded the set of finds, which is basically the same as a set of finds for Nottenkopf everywhere where Nottenkopf exists. So no evidence of contacts, almost no evidence of contacts with some indigenous groups. Like with Krish, there is also a set of mutual imports, finds of LBK pottery in Buh-Dniester contexts indicated by crosses. Some finds of Buh-Dniester looking pottery in LBK sites, but generally speaking, they are not so numerous like Krish finds in Buh-Dniester contexts in the previous period. For Soroka sites in Moldova, here, Krish pottery would be counted in tens and hundreds pieces, and they constitute a significant component of ceramic assemblage, while LBK usually are single finds. When LBK potsherds usually are single finds when they are found. Sometimes it's a complete vessel, but rarely more than several pieces. And then distribution of Buh-Dniester and early Tripilla. Also, they intersect quite a lot in space. And there are hundreds, probably thousands of Tripillian potsherds, especially in the sites around Gard here. There is a scatter of sites excavated by Tofkailo, with where early Tripillian potsherds constitute a significant share of every assemblage found in the cultural layer of Buh-Dniester sites. So let's move to the critique of Buh-Dniester concept. For quite a long time, Buh-Dniester were believed to be particular. Dmytro Telegin, for example, dividing two cultural walls in the south of Eastern Europe, believed that Buh-Dniester culture are early farmers, like Krish and linear band ceramic. He placed them on the other side of frontier. His opinion was based on results of paleozoological analysis when Ukrainian and Moldavian paleozoologists constantly found bones of domestic animals in the Buh-Dniester contexts. And on the other hand, on archaeobotanic analysis of a particular type of analysis of imprints of cultivated plant parts in the potsherds. For example, there is a summing up paper of Zoya Yanushevich, a Moldavian archaeobotanist, I'm sorry, of 1989, where she lists quite a lot of cultivated plants and species found in the Buh-Dniester sites. However, if you will take a closer look, most of them would come from Sakharovka and Ruptura. Sakharovka and Ruptura were reattributed as Krish settlements by Olga Larina in 1994. For example, from Sakharovka comes this nice antler sickle with flint inserts inside. So they were really very much early farmers. So this richness of plant imprints mostly has nothing to do with Buh-Dniester, but rather with their Krish neighbors. Also, other sites listed here, sites from Soroka, contain quite a nice collection of Krish imports, like was already said. And it would be nice to know, probably these imprints of cultivated plant parts were found not on Buh-Dniester potsherds, but on potsherds from Krish. And so they characterize Krish economy, not Buh-Dniester ones. Similar analysis for Ukraine were done by archaeobotanist Halina Pashkevich, and she also found quite a lot of domestic cultivated plants imprints on potsherds. Since Ruth Trinham works, there was an idea that Buh-Dniester were in fact hunter-gatherers, but hunter-gatherers of a particular type, acquainted with agriculture, practicing it to some extent. And probably this idea found its culmination in work of Malcolm Lilly and Marek Zwelebil of 2000, where they defined Buh-Dniester as hunters in the availability phase or transition society. But this ideas, both of them, that Buh-Dniester were early farmers and Buh-Dniester were hunter-gatherers in availability phase, both ideas at the moment do not have empirical background, because recently a Japanese team led by Endo, in collaboration with Ukrainian archaeologists and archaeobotanists, has tried to replicate identification of imprints using replicas and using scanning electronic microscopy, so more precise and objective methods. Halina Pashkevich, as a true scientist, demonstrated a scientific courage and showed the potsherds where she identified cultivated plants some years ago to re-examination. So she is co-author of the final paper. Unfortunately, re-examination failed to find any traces of cultivated plants. Imprints identified as imprints of cultivated plants were either undecisive under re-examination or belonged to some sylvatic plant species which were morphologically similar, and with available at the moment technique, Halina Pashkevich was working with optical microscope here, and with refinement of technique, it appeared that in fact there were no imprints of cultivated plants. This observation is reinforced by critique posed by Norbert Benecke on paleozoological assemblages of Buh-Dniester culture. He examined most of Buh-Dniester assemblages from Moldova, and his conclusion was that there were no domesticated and domestic animal bones. All domestic animal bones came from dubious contexts, from contexts which were contaminated by finds of later periods. Nowadays, works of Alina Stupak reinforce this observation of Norbert Benecke. So there are no evidence that Buh-Dniester people were acquainted with agriculture or with herding. Cultivated plants do exist in Ukraine. Some time ago, I was in a project with archaeobotanist with Aurélie Salaver, and we did flotation in Buh-Dniester site, Melnichna Krucha, and in Kamene Zavalya, the site of LBK. And in Buh-Dniester site, we found only charred remains of sylvatic plants. While in linear band ceramic, there was quite a handful of charred remains of cultivated plants, of wheat, and I think even barley. So cultivated plants existed. They could be detected. Their absence from Buh-Dniester sites is not post-depositional issue, not an issue of preservation on the roughly contemporaneous sites several kilometers away. They do exist. The reason for their absence is that Buh-Dniester people were not using cultivated plants in their economy. The second line of critique is post-depositional. So basically, I'm trying to I'm trying to verify the field interpretations of excavators which defined Buh-Dniester culture some time ago. Mostly we are dealing with works of Valentin Danilenko for Ukraine and Vsevolod Markevich for Moldova. Most of Buh-Dniester sites were excavated in the course of rescue expeditions. So they are now flooded or destroyed by some other construction activity. And not so many are available for re-examination. For example, Dmytro Kiosak was able to re-examine the sequences of Tsikhinivka 1 site after Vsevolod Markevich excavations, and the sequence of Pechera site after excavations of Valentin Danilenko. Here are his graphs for Pechera, where you can see that a Neolithic and Bronze Age pottery were found in the layers where also most Buh-Dniester pottery was found. So homogeneity, purity of these complexes, if it's possible to say in this way, is compromised. There are finds from other periods, later periods there. For example, if you would try to think about presence of domestic fauna, I'm not sure that animal bones from such layers could be an evidence of presence of domestic fauna. Moreover, a post-depositional critique can be done also in archive and in museums, working with collections of all the excavation and their field documentation. Here is, for example, it's a picture to the right, the finds from Mechnikov site, which were published by Valentin Danilenko as upper sovereign layer of this stratified site. But we, together with Dmytro Kiosak, were able to show that, in fact, they came from works of another expedition. They were gathered by expedition of Odesa Archaeological Museum in 1938, and probably even from different location, not that was excavated by Danilenko. Quite a lot of such post-depositional critique was done by Dmytro Kiosak. For example, he was able to show that in the site of Baskiv Ostriv, excavated by Danilenko in 1959, measurements of depths were done in quite a crude manner, available in 1959. There was not so much options. From this so-called baseline drawn by spade on the wall of excavations. So in fact, measurements of depths of most of finds of Baskiv Ostriv should be taken with caution. And there are serious doubts in the interpretation of the stratigraphy of this site, which basically was used by Dmytro Telegin and by Nadia Kotova to define periods of Buh-Dniester culture as stratified site, which shows the sequence of archaeological events. I was able to verify the sequence of Melnechna Krucha thanks to funding of Swiss National Science Fund. In 2016-2018, we reopened and excavated quite a big section of Melnichna Krucha. Here is the site. The site is by the river here. Here is our excavations visible. We were able to detect several stratigraphic units. Late Bronze Age above, then unit of Buh-Dniester, of ceramic hunter-gatherers with some potsherds, lithics with geometric macroliths, trapezes, and T-shaped antler axis. Then there was a big sedimentological block of very wet sediment, a hydromorphic soil formed under conditions of periodical flooding, which can be divided in two blocks, lower one with lithics of Kukrek type and upper one with late Mesolithic type lithics. Here are finds from Buh-Dniester stratigraphic units of Melnichna Krucha from my recent excavations. Antler axes, which were directly dated to first half of 6th millennium BC. This one is a little bit earlier, this one is a little bit later. And potsherds. When we dated these stratigraphical units, the results were more than surprising. The results were striking, basically. Kukrek lithics appeared to be artifacts of 6th millennium BC, so quite far away from any Neolithization, from any incoming early farms. Since, according to Danilenko, Kukrek lithics were a characteristic feature of early period of Buh-Dniester culture. Evidently, it's not true, and every complex where early Buh-Dniester pottery was accompanied by, was found together with Kukrek lithics is a palimpsest. It's a mixture of Mesolithic and later material of ceramic hunter-gatherers. Kukrek is not even late Mesolithic in this case. It's something which would correspond to middle Mesolithic, so Softerian in Western and Southern Europe. There was also some late Mesolithic unit with a date of 6,600, 6,400. 6th millennium, first half of 6th millennium dates for Buh-Dniester units, and so on. This observation on early age of Kukrek lithics was confirmed by AMS dating of other sites, Vigren 8 and Kamena Mohyla 1, layer B. Dmytro Kiosak was able to show that there are no evidence that burials of Buh-Dniester culture were mostly crouched on the side. At least there were the supine on the back position was at least as probable. So this feature of early farmingness of Buh-Dniester also is disproved. And finally, in this post-depositional situation, the typochronology proposed by Danilenko cannot hold. We simply do not know which lithics go together with these potsherds. We don't know, we cannot answer questions, for example, T-shaped axis of early Buh-Dniester. Are they different from T-shaped axis of late Buh-Dniester? This question even difficult to pose because we do not have pure complexes of early Buh-Dniester, basically. Or we have them maybe less than 5. Another line of critique relates to chronology. The set of radiocarbon dates for radiocarbon the set of radiocarbon dates for Buh-Dniester culture contains some 87 dates at the moment. 79 were listed by Tovkaila, and I think I can add 8 more to this list. The set of dates is diversified. Kiev laboratory dates obtained in several series between 1998 2008 show that this culture existed between 600, 300, 5,400 basically. So they are earlier than other dates. Other conventional dates limit its existence to 6 millennium BC. Particularly disturbing results are obtained on direct dating of total organic carbon content in potsherds done by Kiev laboratory. They indicate that the earliest pottery would appear in the second half of the 7th millennium BC. I think it is agreed that it's not the case, and in general, by John Meadows from Kiel University, it was extensively shown that totaling organic carbon content in the potsherd is a bad approach of getting dates. So basically, we are getting chemical measurements, but not dates. These chemical measurements can have very different chronological interpretation, and it's difficult to choose which interpretation is true. These dates can be contaminated by old carbon, they can be contaminated by young carbon, and it's impossible to differentiate between contaminated and non-contaminated samples. Recently, a large series of direct dates on potsherds were obtained in the Tokyo lab. These are AMS dates. They were published by Dmytro Kiosak and Kiosak, and they some of them are evidently too old. Some of them probably are too young. Physicists which were doing these dates provided a proxy to estimate probability of old carbon contamination, and the dates were ranged according to this probability. And usually it works well because the earlier dates have larger probability of old carbon contamination. There are other AMS dates, which you can see plotted here together with Tokyo potsherds. And here, if we extract Tokyo potsherds from other AMS dates, so basically we will plot just AMS dates on bones, we'll arrive at this estimate of culture duration. Yeah. Basically, it starts with the 6th millennium BC and lasts quite a lot into 5th millennium BC. But the number of such dates is very limited. It's only 14 dates, and obviously there is a need not only to double, but multiply this data set to make any conclusions. Here is a chronology of Baskiv Ostrov site, which is based on 2 set of dates, Kiev dates and Tokyo dates. Kiev dates are not necessarily wrong. Dmytro Kiosak defines 3 layers and Baskiv Ostrov. And the earliest Mesolithic layer would be dated by Kiev dates. Then there will be layer of early Buh-Dniester and the layer of late Buh-Dniester. When we generalize the dates, we can sum them, and we will get roughly 2 peaks. One in the 6th millennium BC and another one already in the 5th millennium BC. We can use kernel density estimate and still have these 2 peaks. But if we will take into account only dates on bones and charcoal, we will have two clear peaks with a gap somewhere around LBK spread in the ridge. I would say that it means that there were two different phenomena. One earlier, which interacted with Krish, and one later, which could have interacted with linear band ceramic and could have interacted with early Tripilla. But mostly it happened in the chronological gap when linear band ceramic already is over and Tripilla has not yet started. Does this to archaeological phenomena correspond to two periods of Buh-Dniester culture, as defined, for example, by Kotova in 2003? I would doubt this again on post-depositional grounds, because we just do not know which lithic tools go together with which pottery. Speaking nothing about bones. Bones can be directly dated, and that could be of benefit, but it was not done yet. Probably these issues were perceived by Nadia Kotova in 2015 when she has written that sites of two periods of Buh-Dniester culture look like two different cultures with their separate origins and minimum continuity. It cannot be excluded that they will be treated as such in the future. Dmytro Kiosak on his side in 2011 has demonstrated that some ceramic styles united under the heading of Buh-Dniester, namely Samchince style of pottery, has its own area of distribution which do not correspond with area of distribution of Buh-Dniester culture, which easily goes across these borders. Buh-Dniester sites they are united, but their topographical position by the river quite low land. And in this sense, they contrast with sites of linear band ceramic, which is situated somewhat away from the river. It looks like LBK were looking for good places to practice agriculture, and Buh-Dniester people were looking for good fishing places. When we, with Professor Жанна Matvyshina, studied buried Holocene soils in the Buh-Dniester and early farming sites, we found that early farming sites usually are situated on a buried soil of fertile type, either Chernozem or Castanozem, but really fertile soil. While Buh-Dniester sites quite often stood on hydromorphic soils, which are very sandy and not suitable for any type of agriculture. There are different definitions of archaeological culture. I will not stay here. The important thing is that we are looking for something which is consistent in time and space, and like a package of things which go together constantly, which constantly reappear in the sites of a certain age and certain geographical location. It is obviously not the case with Buh-Dniester culture, which lasted, it seems, 1,500 years, with probably a big gap in the middle and quite different distinctive sets of material culture for early and end of the culture. But the most important thing is that we are not sure in the association of different components of material culture. We cannot speak about archaeological culture. We can speak about ceramic styles and groups of pottery, but it is really difficult, almost impossible with available archaeological record to speak about complexes of material culture. So what we know so far? There were some fisher hunter-gatherers equipped with pottery, with blurry chronology and little-known material culture. I propose to call them para-Neolithic. Dmytro Kiosak prefers to use term sub-Neolithic to define these groups. I'm not sure that we can apply the term archaeological culture to these sites in the same sense like we speak about Krish culture, linear pottery culture, and Tripilla, for example. Evidently, this is entity of another type, probably not united by identity, but united by the riverine way of life, by exploitation in a certain repeated way of rich resources of valleys of southern Bug and Dniester. And some positive program to finish on a positive note. There are recent paper of Dolbunova and Kosas, which define a regression model for pottery coming from east to the west, and we can place Melnich-Nakrucha stratigraphic unit 2 in this model, and it will be quite an early specimen in this case, which would mean that pottery spread east-west a little bit faster than was suggested by their model. Yeah. In fact, the chronological difference between the start point of this model of site in the north of Carpathian, 0.3 here by Beck, and Melnich-Nakrucha, the chronological differences is from 0 to 170 years when modeled with interval function of Oxcal. It would mean the distance is quite large, more than 800 kilometers. It would mean that earliest pottery spread extremely fast. More or less, it's the same picture that we see when we compare dates for the earliest linear band ceramic. This type of distribution, which Professor Dolukhanov called explosive-like expansion. And then it means that demic diffusion performs badly as a model of the earliest pottery diffusion. We can compare earliest Buh-Dniester with Krish, and we will see that it arrives a little bit earlier than Krish to the valley of Dniester. So we could expect some complexes of ceramic hunter-gatherers prior to the contact with Krish. When we are working with modern radiocarbon dates, there are certain gaps in the archaeological record. Krish is unlikely to survive 4400. LBK are unlikely to reach our region till 5250. LBK is unlikely to survive 4950. Tripilla A are unlikely to spread out of Carpathians till 4750. What happened during these gaps? I built several models in Oxcal, combining various types of chronological relation between sequences. Phases of sequences. Phases can be overlapping, they can be sequential with a possible gap between them, and they can be consecutive without gap, with a single transition. So here they are, as you can see by the last column, the last row, with agreement index, only overlapping phases are possible. So it's a strong argument that some ceramic hunter-gatherers overlapped in time with incoming early farmers. Attempts to differentiate them, to divide them in time, fail. For example, for sequential model has a low agreement index. Certainly, we can select radiocarbon dates in such a way that it will fit into the model, but it will be torturing the available data. And so at the moment, we can place the question of interaction of LBK with Buh-Dniester culture. Here is the interval, chronological interval of LBK, evidenced by many AMS dates, and some dates of Buh-Dniester culture also fell into this time slot. This one's for this vessel shown in the picture. We can pose the question of chronological coexistence of latest Buh-Dniester with early Tripilla. This is the time slot for early Tripilla defined by AMS dates, and some dates of Buh-Dniester also nicely fit into this time slot. Moreover, like I have told, there are numerous finds of early Tripillian potsherds, and also lithic tools, rhomboid points, in certain contexts of ceramic hunter-gatherers in southern Buk Valley. Yeah, namely these dates. Yeah. So did they interact? Yep, we are arriving at such a level of evidence that basically is not existing for most other regions of Europe in the question of interactions. We are reaching this question closely, and closely we have imports, we have radiocarbon dates. What kind of evidence would we need more to say that they interacted? I would say that we need nice, clear, pure complexes of material culture excavated with microstratigraphic method and dated by AMS dates on various types of materials, on animal bones, on charcoal, on food crusts left on potsherds, and so on. At the moment, the question of interaction is still open, but there are clear ways how to study it. We need to find not a long sequence, not a rich saturated layer of ceramic hunter-gatherer sites of a right period, but we need to find a homogeneous, clearly defined, probably not that much rich in finds, stratigraphic unit of ceramic hunter-gatherers and excavate it and check the question of interaction by radiocarbon dating and by looking at the finds. Thank you. That's a conclusion. I would like to thank our colleagues which are currently serving in armed forces in Ukraine. I clearly aware, I clearly conscious that I'm able to do this talk because they are serving in military and protecting my continuation of civil way of life. Here are thanks for funding. Yep. Thank you for listening.